Hi everyone, my name is Elodie Bouzbib. I'm a postdoc at Lab in Pamplona in Spain, and today I'm presenting a work called Flexible Reality: Can Pseudo-Haptics Enhance Vibration Intensity Perception in Collocated AR Interaction, on which we collaborated between Lab in Pamplona, INRIA in Rennes, and Institute for Future Technology in Paris. So first, pseudo-haptics, what is it? It's a type of illusion, a mechanism that manipulates non-haptic cues to make perceived haptic features. And more generally, it leverages visual dominance over haptics in this respect. This is widely used in virtual reality in VR, where visuals are fully controlled, for instance, to provide here a sensation of compliance in a fully rigid object without having to design a mechanically complex haptic interface for it. In this example, the interaction is collocated, meaning that the real and digital interaction occur at the same location. The user's real hand goes towards the real object to manipulate it, and its virtual representation, its avatar hand, does the same thing simultaneously towards the virtual object of different haptic properties. All right, is this possible outside of VR? Yes, for instance, here, users manipulate their mouse, and whenever they click, they perceive elasticity, compliance in the image using visual effects such as deformation, shadowing, force metaphors. The interaction here is non-collocated. The real and digital interaction do not occur at the same location, meaning that the real hand is here interacting with the mouse on the desktop while its digital counterpart is on the screen. And when the user clicks on the mouse, the effect appears on the screen. Could it work with collocated interaction? Yes, if we interact with a tactile interface, real and digital hand would occur at the same location, and the user could think they're the one causing the texture to deform. This is actually what's defined as the sense of agency, thinking, I'm the one who's causing the action. Now, let's think. What about AR? In augmented reality, users perceive their real environment, which is augmented through virtual artifacts in 3D, like this one. Users perceive their real hand, and thus direct interaction techniques are collocated. Thus, if the user actually sees their hand, a modification of an avatar hand, whether for scale, shape, rotation, or any of the effects that are usually used in collocated visual haptic illusions, could be detected. Virtual effect could be impeded by the lack of embodiment in the virtual avatar hand, meaning a lack of agency. Did I or the avatar did it? Body ownership, is this my hand or is this the avatar hand? And self-location, is the avatar hand position my hand position? In this paper, and inspired from sci-fi such as The Matrix here, we propose the concept of flexible reality. Imagine that any object from the real environment can physically react to touch, to contact during direct manipulation. The environment could be seen as somewhat tangible and deformable to a point where it can be malleable and flexible. This effect is induced in flexible reality when visual overlays simulate tactile sensation without any physical changes to the interacted object, without having to design a mechanical actuation. We aim to quantify this concept in real life through 3 research questions for collocated interaction techniques in AR. First, can reality be altered in AR as much as in VR? Second, can reality be made flexible using visual artifacts? And third, can visual artifact enhance haptic vibratory feedback? So we built upon the intensity definition of the haptic experience as the overall perceived strength of feedback and proposed to enhance its causality, how easily a user can relate haptic feedback to the source of interaction, meaning we make the user direct interaction generate the visual effect. We compare visual, haptic, and visual haptic vibration intensity feedback in both AR and VR. We have 3 hypotheses. Pseudo-haptics can be enhanced in collocated AR direct interaction techniques, but VR-based pseudo-haptic intensities are higher than AR-based ones. Second, high haptic stimuli without visual have higher vibration intensity perception than high intensities visual without haptics. And third, visual and haptic stimulation coupled together and hence uses global vibration intensity. Hardware-wise, we first 3D printed a tangible surface using PLA and attached a mini vibration coin motor under it to vibrate. As vibration tend to dissipate in the table and can be felt prior to interaction, thus biasing our experience, we engineered a dual-layer damping strategy using springs absorbing lower frequency vibrations and a layer of foam to dissipate residual vibratory energy. To facilitate the recognition of the effects, we added a basic UV texture over the cube and used the same texture on its virtual counterpart. We designed 3 visual effects with various levels of realism. For the realistic one, we instantiate small distances translation in all directions and control these distances and their frequency to provide lower to stronger vibration intensities. For the abstract one, we modified the object's vertex heights and control their amplitude and frequency to provide levels of vibration intensity. Finally, we propose a ripple effect. By definition, it occurs when an initial disturbance to a system propagates outward to disturb an increasingly larger portion of the system and control both amplitude and radius of the wavelets. We conducted a user evaluation with 22 participants where we evaluate the effects of view, so AR or VR, visual renderings, their intensity, and haptic intensities on the overall perception of feedback. Each participant performed 3 blocks of each views in a pseudo-random order, and we've used a within design and switched the starting conditions for each user. So one started in AR, the other one started in VR. We measured their answers, the number of touch interaction, and we conducted a semi-structured interview after the experiment. We then conducted a 4-way repeated measure another. So first thing first, we compared the results between AR and VR with average scores respectively of 4.1 and 4.2 over 7. We noted no significant effect for view, and we then decided to run a 2 one-side test to evaluate whether results are equivalent for both views. A significant result was obtained, meaning that AR and VR effects can be considered as equivalent in this configuration. Second, we compared the user's perceived feedback strength as a function of visual intensities and of visual rendering when there's no haptic feedback. We do see an increase in feedback strength perception as a function of visual intensities. For instance, here with the realistic feedback. We actually note highly significant effects between all visual intensities. Similarly, we plotted the user's perceived feedback strength as a function of haptic intensities when there's no visuals, and found significant effects too between intensities. We actually note that high visual intensities without haptics show similar results than high haptic intensities without visuals with similar averages. We once again decided to run a toast between samples and demonstrate a significant result for equivalence. Now, let's look at the feedback strength perception as a function of visual intensity and haptic intensity here for the realistic visual rendering. We note that the scores are increasing as a function of X, the visual intensity, and the hue, here the haptic intensity. We actually note significant effects within similar visual intensities reflecting on the haptic effects, and within similar haptics reflecting on visual intensity effects. This is validated for the other visual renderings too, such as the ripple and the abstract renderings, showing even higher results and averages. Globally, as expected, the perceived strength of the feedback increases proportionally with the visual and haptic intensities. From the semi-structured interviews, P5 mentioned that they felt disturbed when the events did not align with their experience, leading them to physically verify the reality by touching the table and to remember what the real reality is. Participants globally preferred the ripple and abstract visual renderings, and when asked why, they mentioned believing to cause the feedback. Causality is a haptic experience usability requirement defined as understanding the cause of the feedback. And in this experience, we believe that self-causality, embodying the source of the feedback, can be the source for interaction likeliness and enjoyment, similarly to the sense of agency that we mentioned in the introduction. As a summary of finding, first, we validated that we can indeed provide pseudo-haptics in collocated direct interaction in augmented reality. Moreover, VR is not stronger than AR, and there's actually a significant result of equivalence between virtual and augmented reality in this experience. Similarly, while we believed haptics without visuals would be perceived stronger than visuals without haptics, we showed there again a significant result of equivalence and demonstrated that high-intensity visuals can be interpreted as intense as high haptic stimuli. Finally, we showed that visual and haptics do increase feedback strength perception significantly and enhance each other. Thus, when trying to enhance a yet already strong haptic feedback, visuals can help strengthen the perception even in augmented reality. As user presence in VR tends to be more quantifiable in AR through object presence, we believe that the embodiment in VR, usually through the hand representation, is provided throughout object interaction in AR with self-causality and agency. This raises novel questions for future work. Can we extend this self-causality over the user's own body perception? Second, and reciprocally, what would happen if an object came in contact with the user? Can it externally alter one's body perception and sense of ownership? Future work also includes the investigation of more haptic properties, for instance, thermal ones, here changing from hot to cold, and which could be implemented quite easily using Peltier cells. Studying and enabling more haptic features will enable more realistic and usable scenarios in the future of augmented realities. The manipulation of sensory perception in AR, while offering extensive possibilities for enhancing user experience, also raises ethical questions similar to those presented in science fiction, with alteration of the environment or even the self on the designer's demand. While these can be considered as fun experiments, while the users take the red pill and are aware and conscious about the augmented environment alteration, there is a need to consider the implications of altering a user's sensory inputs, especially in context where such changes can affect decision-making or cause psychological impacts. Overall, the contribution of this work are flexible reality, a conceptual approach to extend overall perceived intensity in collocated AR through pseudo-haptics. Empirical results showing that pseudo-haptic illusions can be induced in AR as much as in VR. Empirical results showing how visual stimuli can solely replicate and significantly enhance haptic vibratory perception, and qualitative user feedback indicating how agency and self-causality enhances the perception and global experience enjoyment. Thank you for your attention. Feel free to check this article and the rest of my work on my website.